the city's heartbeat in every story, connecting cultures one conversation at a time. More than a podcast, is your home away from home. Albuquerque, located in the heart of New Mexico, is more than just a place on the map. It's a crossroad of cultures, a meeting ground for traditions, and a home to countless stories waiting to be told. Here, every street corner, every gathering, and every conversation is a confluence of voices from around the world. In You Belong in Albuquerque, we aim to bridge the gaps between cultures and communities by sharing personal narratives that highlight the resilience, creativity, and unity that define our city. Whether you are a long-time resident or a curious newcomer, this podcast invites you to explore the rich tapestry of stories that make Albuquerque a truly unique and welcoming home. Hello and welcome to our first podcast called You Belong in Albuquerque, Voices That Cross Borders. My name is Beatriz Valencia, and I'm going to be your host and bring you to this amazing journey through stories that transcend boundaries and celebrate the vibrant tapestry of our diverse community in our city. So today we have one person that I can call a friend because I know her since she was working many years back in Encuentro, New Mexico, and her name is Fiore Bran Aragón, and she's going to tell us a lot of stories. Not only that, she's a business owner of a yoga studio, and as well, she's an international advisor for international students in a local university. Does a wonderful job, is a community leader, and we want her voice to be expressed today. So let's go have that conversation today with Fiore. Okay, Fiore, what aspects of your culture have you brought with you, and how do you keep them alive here? But I would like first than that, tell me that amazing story, the where you came from, and what was the reason behind you coming to Albuquerque and being able to be part of our community and take the lead to help others.
Sure. So thank you for having me, Beatriz, and thank you, everybody. Well, my name is Fiore Bran Aragón. I'm originally from Nicaragua in Central America. My family is from El Salvador, so I kind of consider myself a Central American in the sense that I feel like I belong to the whole region. I also lived in Guatemala for a while and have many friends from throughout Central America. So it just feels like when I have to describe myself, I always think of myself more as a Central American person in general. I grew up and spent most of my childhood in Nicaragua, in the Pacific coast of the country, so in a pretty tropical area. I would say the place in the U.S. that probably has a most similar weather might be New Orleans or Miami. So it's very different than Albuquerque. And I ended up here because I started my immigration journey in 2018. After there was a civil uprising in my home country, and it was not safe to be there anymore, unfortunately. But I was able to get to a safe place in Mexico and eventually come to the U.S. as an international student from the university where I currently work. And I'm so proud to say that there's been a full circle moment in that sense, because right now, in my current position, I'm able to support other students that are coming in similar situations, and I'm able to help them integrate into the country, into the community in Albuquerque, and thrive. So that feels to me that it's kind of one of the things that I love the most about the work I do with the community, either at the university or outside with the work that I do with yoga. So yeah, that's where I come from, and that's kind of a little bit of my story.
And what you are mentioning is very powerful, because not everybody is aware of all the challenges that our community members in other countries experience. I'm originally from Colombia, South America, and when we were trying to prepare for this interview, we realized that Nicaragua was close to the island where I grew up, that is San Andres Island, and many of the challenges that Central America had during periods of times, and that forced migration. And you are a success story in Albuquerque of what it means to come from a difficult situation to make it something powerful to help others. So thank you for doing that. So what have been some of the biggest challenges you have faced since moving to Albuquerque?
What do you say? So definitely, I think as a newcomer who was coming on her own too, I know that we also have some immigrants families who have long roots in Albuquerque, right? Or have been coming and already have some relatives. For me, it was like a completely new place, different weather, different everything. And I think one of the biggest challenges was probably the language barriers. Even though I learned some English when I was in school back in Nicaragua, I was not fully bilingual until I came here. And I pretty much remember my first semester in school in Albuquerque. I was just trying to, I had to speak out loud to express my needs, to navigate life, healthcare, education. And it was just really challenging. So I think language barriers were for sure a thing, and I eventually overcame them just by feeling comfortable practicing with native speakers, feeling supported by my teachers and my community in general. For people who have an accent, right, sometimes it can be challenging to speak aloud, and I feel like I had those actual barriers, but I always felt supported by my community, so that definitely helped me overcome that. I think another barrier may have been just cultural adjustment to life, differences in the education and healthcare system, differences in transportation, learning about small talk, for example, which may not be a thing, right? For me back home, small talk wasn't a thing that I had to do when I was meeting new people. So that was definitely new. And again, I feel like Albuquerque is such a diverse and open community that I never actually felt left out. If I was somewhere, and even though there were no other Nicaraguans, I always felt pretty welcome with the Latino community in general, with American communities who just wanted to learn about other countries, about Spanish language, about other peoples. And I've even been learning much more about the other immigrant and refugee communities and the native communities in New Mexico, which I think it's such a rich experience for me as a newcomer as well. So I really appreciate all that welcoming environment that I feel like the city in general and the communities in our city open up their doors for other people. So.
And it's an interesting fact what you mentioned about the Native American communities, because we have a huge also indigenous community in all our countries, yes. from the South America to Central America to part of North America. What you can say that are the similarities and the differences between those communities, and we can come together that when you come to New Mexico, and especially in Albuquerque, you are able to see that you have so much commonalities.
Right. I love that about New Mexico, about its rich culture and history. I do have a background in anthropology, so I'm pretty interested in that area specifically. And I'm also, like, my grandparents are Native Americans from the Nahua Nicaragua people in Nicaragua and El Salvador. And to me, coming here and learning about the different rich cultures, the languages, all that the Native communities are doing here to preserve their languages, to take care of their culture, to offer a welcoming space and respectful space for other people has been fascinating to me. I recently had experience because we were just traveling to Taos, Pueblo. I do have one friend from there from school, and we were just visiting, right, like tourists. And I remember I came into this little store and was talking to one of the ladies, to the artist who was there, like sharing her art. She was a painter, and I remember she showed me a painting of two native people that were standing and sharing corn, and they had some New Mexican birds, but also macaw, who's from Central America. So I was like, oh, how did you get that? And she was telling me this story about the people of Chaco Canyon and how they have found fossils of macaws were originally from Central and South America, and how those ended up here because of the trade and trade relationship and, travels between native peoples of Mesoamerica and the southwestern U.S., which to me was fascinating. I didn't know about that. And it's like, oh yeah, we have been probably migrating for such a long time before nation states existed. And I think that reaffirmed that sense of interest for me in human mobility in general, and how it seems to be such a thing that has happened for generations, right? So,
and that's a good point. The trade between the Native American communities comes from the Hopis towards the part of the Incas for a long period of times. And they were going back and forth doing that trading because there was no borders in that period of time, and which is wonderful in the sense, like, the times have changed, but they were able to exchange that part of relics, food, many other type of things that also create some type of particularities that are very similar in multiple countries at the same time, doesn't it?
I love that. It's fascinating to me whenever I go and visit a new place, and it's like, oh yeah, the art and the language or some of the artifacts are similar because of those long-term relationships that have been there throughout history.
So you see that cultural component is very much embedded in New Mexico, that has the minority-majority communities, which that so the indigenous part really is part also of South America, Central America, and New Mexico. So when we go back now to the part of your role as advising international students and your experience as an international student, what do you think it could be some of like the wonderful things that you experienced as an international student living in the U.S., and you already shared the part of the challenges of learning a new language to the, like right now, you express yourself wonderfully. And I have a similar situation. When I came to the United States, I was not able to speak English, but I was able to read it and write it until some point. And the challenge to be able to communicate was hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. But because of the resilient communities, that when you want to overcome all these challenges because you really want to make a difference in yourself and others. So that is very well appreciated of what happens. So how do you use your experiences that you already had to be able to help your students that you work with?
Right, for sure. So I think one of the things that I learned in my current position is, again, about the resiliency of people, the resiliency of our immigrants and refugee communities when they're trying to integrate into a new country. And despite all those challenges, they come together and show how much we bring to the community, I think. And I think that it also has to do with how receptive the local community is. So we actually can both thrive and integrate. One of the things that I see in my position a lot is I coordinate two programs. One of them that offers volunteer service to local nonprofits and to local associations, shelters, all sorts of nonprofits that we help. And the volunteers are international students who are trying to hone their English skills or just developing service leadership skills, learn about U.S. culture, learning about how to serve in a new place. And I think that shows how people are not only resilient, but also willing to use their skills for the good of the whole community, of everybody. So that's like one of my experiences with that. The other one is, of course, I currently also own a very small yoga business that offers free and donation-based classes with a focus on low-income people and the immigrant community. And something I see there is how a lot of the people that come to our classes are actually people who are also serving in different areas, from caregivers to people working in home care who are mostly immigrants, to people working in agriculture, to all these people that are doing all these essential jobs, which I remember from the COVID pandemic, we used to say that a lot, like about essential workers, right? So I see that a lot in my classes, how essential workers who are immigrants contribute to the community and how resilient they are in all areas, from people working in transportation every day to people offering services in low-income jobs that need that space for rest. And I definitely see how a lot of them also eventually become business owners or support the communities in some other ways by providing jobs to other people, by encouraging others to come together and advocate for their rights, for protections, for care, for a better community in general. So I think that's very powerful. And I see how that happens with people from all over in the spaces that I share with them. So that's great.
So the stories of immigrant and refugee, just like you experience it, and also how built Albuquerque is connected, those volunteers that you just mentioned. I remember when we had the World Refugee Day in May, in June, they were our saviors. Oh my goodness, your students were amazing. They were able to interact with cultures and languages from all over. And they were themselves international students interacting with communities. We have 900 people that time, and they were all over the place helping us with the decorations, with the food. So the part of being a volunteer is giving back is so essential also for the part of integration and being able to connect with our local community. So I really appreciate that type of partnership. And how you have found or build community here, both with fellow immigrants and with others. And I think you already answered that way in somehow. But you can express, for example, I know that you, according to what you just described, you have already been able to work with so many different organizations. But I'm curious about one thing. How you became a business owner or a yoga studio, and how is that specific yoga for a particular place in the world? You say that is Indonesian yoga, or did I understand incorrectly?
No, well, we do bilingual yoga for sure in English and Spanish. And we actually are not a studio. So let's go from the beginning. Actually, when you asked me about how I built a community here, it's a really complex thing. I came here right before the pandemic. So it was not like a great time to thrive. But even then, I feel like I had the support of a loving family and friends from all over and at the school. And eventually I ended up connecting with people at Encuentro, which was my former employer. And I love the work that they do at Encuentro, offering classes for immigrants, for low-income people, supporting them, right, with work training skills and with education in general. And because of that, I was able to connect with so many other nonprofits that were doing this work in the community, very important work to support all New Mexicans. And one of the things that I noticed is that despite our resiliency and all the work that we do, there's no many spaces for rest, especially for low-income people or people who don't speak English as a first language, who may find it challenging to go to a gym or go to a typical yoga studio to relax or do meditation or practice mindfulness. So that's where that came from. And we actually, one of my best friends who's from Mexico and we both were yoga teachers by then, but we felt kind of afraid to practice in a normal, kind of typical yoga studio setting. And we were starting to be asked by friends in the South Valley to come and offer classes in a farm or offer classes in a shelter. And we were like, okay, so why don't we kind of start our own little business and start offering classes in a more formal setting. So that's how Kula Yoga started. It's a collective of 3, sometimes up to 5 yoga teachers from all over. Most of us are from Latin America. And we offer bilingual classes in English and Spanish all around the city. So it's not actually a yoga studio, but we have these small nonprofit, and we're able to offer yoga classes in different locations. Right now, we're mostly located in a place close to UNM Hospital, in a small studio that we have been able to lend. But we also offer classes in shelters. We have offered classes in detention centers, in farms, in wildlife refuges, wherever people are. I feel like our whole approach is about making yoga and meditation accessible, especially for those that are excluded by mainstream wellness. People who don't have the resources or feel like they don't have the English skills or the physical fitness level to fit into a studio. We kind of try to reach them because our whole deal is that yoga can offer rest, healing, and peace for those, especially for immigrants and low-income people who may not feel welcome in those places. So the idea is to reach them wherever they are instead of having them come to us to a traditional yoga studio.
But that's a very interesting concept, and I appreciate that you are thinking about that, because right now, even many caregivers, healthcare providers have been expressing that they have secondary stress related because of the situations or the federal changes in the last year, and which yoga creates a space of safety or self-care for all those individuals and also community members that can embrace to be like center. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing for our community. And I hope it can be also expanded or that with this podcast, people also can know about what you can provide for them, and they can reach out to you.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I'm going to share my website with you guys later so you can share it. And yeah, everybody's welcome. Nobody's turned away for lack of funds or lack of anything. We provide the full equipment, everything they need to practice. And again, the full idea is that they can come and rest. They don't have to know how to do anything to join a class.
You know, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. How has living in Albuquerque changed your perspective on identity and belonging?
Right. So it's really interesting because I feel like in some ways I've always thought about migration as a kind of part of the human experience, right? Because my parents were also immigrants from El Salvador. Because in Nicaragua, our whole history has been shaped by civil wars and forced displacement at different times. But I think in some ways, by growing up in Nicaragua, I never felt that I was going to emigrate. It was not part of like my dreams or anything. But by moving to Albuquerque and coming here, I've definitely learned about how identities can change, how you can keep your core, right, of being a proud Latina person for me, or feeling like very proud of my culture, but also being willing and being excited about learning from people from other countries. That's something I experience every day in my yoga classes and in my 9-to-5 job at the university, how I see students enriching my perspectives with new ways of thinking, new ways of being, new ways of belonging as well. And I feel like one of the other things I learned about belonging specifically is how you can create spaces to belong even when they may not be mainstream, and how you can take advantage of the resources that are out there. For example, for me, definitely the city of Albuquerque has been a resource to learn about like how to refer my students to places where they can get help when they need to on things like taxes or housing, learning about their rights and responsibilities as international people. So I think it's very enriching to see how belonging, how you can create that sense of belonging, even if when you have just moved to a new place, it can be really hard to feel like you belong. But those people, you just need to reach out to people, and people are out there creating all these wonderful things in our city, in our community. And you just need to tag along and get to talk to them. And how you can also create, I think that the other thing about belonging for me is that you can also create the space for others who are coming. In my case, I've been here for a few years now, and I just feel like one of the things that I love the most is inviting new people to my house or inviting them to a yoga class so they can feel like they belong when they're just starting to come to the country or the city and everything is new to them.
That, those type of experiences really shape the part of the open-mindedness as a human being. So I just imagine as well, like, what type of resources in what you were describing were the ones that you think that probably we need to create more awareness to the immigrant and refugee community?
Right. I feel like there's a lot of resources, right, that you guys offer and that are offered by nonprofits and that are offered by schools. I feel like sometimes people don't know about them. And one barrier may definitely be a language barrier. So I always think of, okay, how can we make these resources more accessible, probably by translating them to the most other common languages that are spoken in Albuquerque. I know that there has been some efforts to translate a lot of resources into Spanish or Vietnamese or Navajo. I think that needs to continue to happen, especially as we experience new influxes of immigrant and refugee communities that are probably new and speak other languages that are not those most common languages. So I think that's one of the things that we can do. And the other thing is, I feel like spaces to celebrate and come together are a thing that attracts people a lot because they can feel like they belong. So for example, the Refugee Day celebration that you all do every June is a great way to bring those communities together and for them to learn about resources in a more playful environment instead of feeling that it's another thing that they have to do on top of all the responsibilities, right? It becomes more kind of fun when you have booths, but you also are able to have food with your friends and have a performance and a dance next to you. I think that those types of resource fairs can help. And finally, I think that we also need to probably take advantage of the media that we have right now, like this idea of a podcast or creating YouTube videos. My students always tell me that they're all on TikTok, and I'm like, I have no idea about that because I'm so old for TikTok. But I know that they get some information from there. So why don't we move on to those media that we could use to share information with the immigrant and refugee community too?
I like that, and it's true. You use TikTok for everything, and they do even businesses with TikTok nowadays. But the part of the resources, I'm very glad that you are using them. I know, and you are aware also of what is available. And because you also, when you work with Encuentro New Mexico, you were able to probably collect all that information that when your new role came up, you were able to use it. So thank you again for your amazing interview today and for the time and your commitment to the community in Albuquerque. And also for all that expression of yoga that is so much needed in this period of time, like I just said before.
Right.
But then I also have, like, what you will be like or your last message to the community about the importance of being open-minded to be able to listen to the stories, to be able to know that our immigrant and refugee community is just part of Albuquerque. 10% of our population is thousands and thousands of people that speak multiple languages, not only Spanish. Mm-hmm. We have Swahili speakers, we have Kinyarwanda, Pashto, Dari, Arabic, Navajo, American Sign Language, not only foreign languages, it's also other languages. Mm-hmm. So we have such a variety of, just for, in how many languages we had to do for the World Refugee Day? 12.
Wow.
Just to be able to bring 900 people. And in some occasions, I think last year we did 14. So in those moments, and I recognize that language access is a big need, but we have been working very hard for this to happen, for programs to be able to have the materials to be able to be translated. So what's going to be your last message? Your message that is empowering our communities to go and to uplift their voices and say, I'm present, I belong in Albuquerque, and I want to know more information, what we can do.
Yeah, I think, and I'm just thinking again about like our native practices from all over the world. One of the important things is to use those storytelling skills that we all have, because there's storytellers in all our cultures. Wherever you're from, you will always hear people talking about their grandparents or a community elderly or somebody telling a story. I think that for us, as we come into a new country and integrate into a new country, one of our powers is to bring our stories that are diverse, that are different, that can bring new enriching perspectives to Albuquerque. And at the same time, to be willing to listen to the local stories, to the needs of the local people, because listening is that skill that can help you see where, for example, there's a business need, where there's a need for this new process or this new product or this new alliance. So I think being able to tell your story in your own terms, honing into those storytelling skills that we all have from our own cultures, and also listening, can be powerful to our immigrant community as we navigate life in a new place, because it allows us to learn from the locals, to learn what they need, to learn about their own experiences and skills, and to see how we can fit into that and also support and thrive together.
Thank you so much, Fiore. And with that, we end today's podcast. And I want to say again, I'm very grateful with the presence of Fiore, Bran, Aragón. Thank you for tuning in our first episode. We are thrilled to have you with us and can't wait to embark in this journey together. Remember, no matter where your story begins, you belong in Albuquerque. Thanks for tuning in. You have been listening to You Belong in Albuquerque, Voices That Cross Borders. Catch your next episode soon. Welcome to the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs at the City of Albuquerque, where we are dedicated to fostering an inclusive, vibrant community for all. Our mission is to support immigrants and refugees as they transition into their new lives, offering essential resources, advocacy, and welcoming environment. By collaborating with local organizations and community leaders, we strive to ensure that everyone has access to opportunities, education, and services necessary for success. Join us in celebrating diversity and empowering individuals to contribute to the cultural and economic vitality of our city. Together, we can make Albuquerque a place where everyone feels at home. For more information about our office, you can go to www.cabq.gov/OIRA.